Let's go over a few basics about our calculator so that we can know how to use it quickly and efficiently during the EOC. So first thing, from the home screen, you have these options to create documents for the different types of things like a calculator or a graph or a spreadsheet and so on. Keep in mind that the spreadsheet is really the only time we want to create a document. For the most part, we want to work on the scratch pad for calculating and graphing. The shortcut to switch between those is this button right here, the second one on the left below Escape. If you click it, it toggles you between the calculator scratch pad and the graph scratch pad. That's where we want to spend the vast majority of our time in the calculator, and the only time that we really want to go to a spreadsheet document is if we have to do a regression problem. So other than that, we're going to stay on the scratch pad. One of the really nice things about the scratch pad is that it's very easy to clear. So you know that to clear everything, especially when you're doing those regression problems, you do Home to Menu C. That works a little different on my digital one here, so I can't show that, but Home to Menu C and then OK. That takes a little while. From the scratch pad, it's a lot easier. If we have anything in there, we can simply press Dock and then the letter B, as in blank. I think of it as blank out everything on the calculator. So you can scroll down. You can scroll down on the dock menu. It actually means clear scratch pad, but if you just hit dock and then B, that'll completely clear the scratch pad graph and calculator sections and reset it so that everything's nice and clean. Particularly the graph, that's a good quick way to knock it out and restart. So use this button to toggle between the two parts of the scratch pad, dock B to clear it. So then some other things that I want to remind you about, most of them have to do with this control button. So the control button on the handheld calculators is gray, and all of these little things above the buttons are gray. So this gives us access to the secondary functions of all the keys. One of them that's very important, obviously, is square root, right above the square. So anytime we have something with a radical, particularly if we want to turn that radical to a decimal, we can do radical and then the number and hit enter. Another one that's really useful if you're trying to type in things the way you see them on the paper is above the divide button. So if I do 4 divided by 3, it looks like that on the paper, kind of the way you would type it on a computer. But then notice when you hit enter, it stacks it as a nice, like, fraction looking kind of fraction. We can actually type it in that way if you hit control and then divide. So you get this little one above the divide that has the two parts. And now we can type in a fraction with a top and bottom part the way you'd see it on a paper and make fewer errors with how we are typing things in here. Next thing is, I have a different video talking about setting variable values. We use this colon equals or this store button for that. I highly recommend you check that one out if you haven't looked at it. It's very useful to be able to do that. Other basic functions are just things like the square, the exponent, the like basic arithmetic functions. Once you have something, so say I did a calculation and I came up with a number, except I typed it wrong. I came up with a number from a calculation, and then I want to use that in the next step. I could just do an operation and it'll fill in answer and then that operation. Or if you want to reference an answer in a future step, you can use the control button and then this answer right here. So if I did 5 times answer, it's pulling whatever the last answer was down and putting that into my current equation. Another way to do that is using these arrows to navigate. If I want to grab this 20/3 from my answer there, or even the 4/3 from up here, I can just use the arrows to navigate to it, press enter, and it'll bring it down to the current line that I'm working on. That can be really useful if you're typing in a complex expression. So say I'm trying several different answers. I did this in a different video, but say I was trying like 4x plus 2y plus 7, and then I wanted to change just one little thing, I could arrow back up to that and bring it back down to the current line. It's good if you're typing in something that's pretty complicated than just changing one number in it. So those are a lot of basic things for the calculator part. Basic things for the graph part are that when you first go to the scratchpad graph, it puts you at f1 of x. So that's your first function that you're graphing. Keep in mind that for the EOC, the calculators are locked so that you can only put in graphs as y equals something. So we can't go backward and change it to a relation. You can do this when the calculators are unlocked and do something like 5x plus 2y equals 7. So we could type in a standard form equation, it hit enter, and it knows how to graph that. But when the calculators are locked in testing mode for the EOC, you cannot do that. You can only type it in as y equals. So if I wanted to type that one in, I would need to rearrange it into slope-intercept form so that it said y equals 7 minus 5x all divided by 2. There are ways to do that kind of better than others, right? So if we're doing it on paper, we're going to kind of keep all the terms separate, but since we're doing it in the calculator, we could just do 7 minus 5. Actually, we're going to use that stack division. So we're going to do 7 minus 5x all over 2. And then I would get rid of that part over here. So I would rearrange it like that, and that doesn't really look like slope-intercept. It's not a form we'd want to write on a paper, but as far as just the least steps to convert from standard to slope-intercept for graphing, that'll work. Next thing is if you want to graph multiple things, you can press the tab button. That'll bring up your next graph. I'm going to go ahead and clear this one so I get back to graphing functions. So say I graph y equals 5x. I want to graph another one. Maybe I'm doing systems. Maybe I just want to compare two lines. Maybe I have a problem that says your line is perpendicular to this other line, and I come up with an answer of, say, let's see, negative 1 over 5 x plus 7. And I want to see, is that perpendicular? And then, yes, when I graph it, I can see they cross at 90 degrees, so that works. So to graph multiple things on the same Scratchpad graph or document graph, you press the tab button to open up your function list. Another really good thing about this function list is you can use the arrow keys and go up to your previous functions if you want to edit them. So say I made an error on that last one, and it should have actually been negative 2/5 x. I can arrow up to it, or I made an error in the first one, I can arrow back up to it as well. So arrows navigate you through the list of functions if you need to edit one or update one. And then again, to start over, we just do doc B, and it's all gone. Our graph is clear, and we're ready to start over fresh. Next thing on the graph, if we graph a function, the nice thing about functions is they allow us to use the table of values, which you can get to by going to Menu Table, and then Split Screen Table. The shortcut is Control T, so I can do Control and T to pull up that split screen table, and I can use the arrows to navigate the values to see my X and Y values. That can be really helpful for matching something up with a table on a problem, or for evaluating functions. If I had f of 5x and it said what is f of 12, I can go to f of 12 and get my value from there. So table is really useful. To open it or close it, you do Control T, so we can do that to close it again. There's some other stuff about graphs in a different video as far as analyzing, finding these zeros, mins, and maxes and that stuff. Another basic thing of graphs is to do zoom. So we can do zoom out is usually what we want, or we can do zoom fit just to see a nice view that shows us all the features of our functions. So that's all the basic things I wanted to cover for using the calculator. Primarily use the Scratchpad, use doc B to clear often so that you are not running into extra stuff that you have in there.